Greetings. My name is Paul, and I am the lead research technician here at the How to Linux Research Labs, and I'm also the administrator of the Pop! OS Linux Facebook group on Facebook. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to install the Rust language on Pop! OS Linux 22.04. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so here's my Pop installation here. Pop open the terminal, show you my fast fetch screen to prove that I'm actually in a Pop session, Pop 2204. Okay, so I'm going to install the Rust language toolchain on here. Okay, so I'm going to clear on that, and I'm going to run through a couple of commands just to show that I don't already have Rust on here already, Rust and the Rust toolchain. So I'm going to go through a couple of commands to prove that I'm actually, running Rust at this moment. And then once we're done with the installation process, then we'll check everything else, and we should get some output verifying that Rust has been installed. Okay, so let's run through a couple of commands real quick to verify that we don't already have Rust installed. Okay. Now you're going to have, before I get into the Rust verification, you're going to have this curl download utility. Okay, so if you go curl -- version, you can see whether it's installed or not on your system. If not, it should be on Pop already. If not, a simple sudo apt install curl command should install it. Okay, so you have to have curl command to get started with the installation process. Okay. Okay, so we got that curl out of the way. Now let's check a couple things here real quick about Rust. Okay, let's go through these three here. Which Rustup? Okay, you can see there's no output there, so it's not telling me where Rustup has been installed in the system. Same thing with Cargo, the package manager, and in the Rustc compiler. Okay, here we go. Okay, so once we're done installing, we'll get some output. At least we should get some output on these three here. Okay. And then we can go ahead and clear on that, and we can just run through the actual versions as well and see what kind of output we get for the versions here. Okay, so Cargo version, nothing. When we're done, again, we'll get a version hopefully, and then a couple more here for Rustup and the Rustc compiler. Okay, Rustup again, nothing's coming up there, and for the Rustc compiler, let's see what the version shows for that one. Okay, as you can see, Rust is not installed at this moment, so once we're all done, we'll verify that my process actually did work and we were able to install the Rust toolchain on Pop 2204. Okay, so we'll clear on all this here. Okay, so the first thing we've got to do is, once we have the curl download utility installed, we can go ahead and use it to do this right here. We're going to use curl to download. Now I'm not really quite sure. I'm a little confused about what we're doing here exactly. This looks like it's going to download a Rust source code file, but then again, there's a shell extension here, and it's going to pass that into the shell interpreter here. So I'm not really quite sure what's going on here. So yeah, I don't know. To me, passing in a .rust source code file into a shell interpreter doesn't make a lot of sense. Although there's a .shell extension here, but why it's at the beginning and not the end, I'm not sure. Essentially, it seems like we're going to pass some kind of a shell script into the bash shell interpreter anyway. We're going to pipe the shell script into the shell interpreter this way here. Okay, so we'll do that in a moment, but I want you to first check that you have the bash shell interpreter installed, and that's what's running at the moment, because it might not work if you have a different shell interpreter. So let's see which shell I've got here. Okay, It should be the bash. Okay, bash. So we're good there. So the shell script that I'm going to download and run and pass into the bash shell interpreter should work. It's a bash shell script being passed into the bash interpreter. Okay, good. So we're good there. Okay, so we can go ahead and clear on that. Go back to our previous command here. Okay? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to enter on this, and then I'm going to have to follow the on-screen instructions. So enter on that, and let's see what happens here. I'm not sure if I should pause the video. It's been a number of years since I installed Rust, so I'm not sure how long this process took. So let's see what happens here. Okay, that wasn't too bad. Okay, so it's going to put Rustup on this path here and cargo on this path here, and then we'll check all these paths here to make sure that these paths are all going to be actually on the path environment variable. The documentation says that the Rustup will try to actually configure the path environment variable. So it'll put the installation paths. It'll make sure that they're on the path environment variable if they're not already. So we'll check that when we're all done. But it looks like it's going to go ahead and try to put all the Rust paths on the path environment variable if it's not already on there. So we can go ahead and access it from the terminal. Otherwise, if it doesn't do that, then we have to do it manually. But let's see what happens. Hopefully Rustup will configure the path environment variable, and we can go ahead and verify the installation, and then we can go ahead and use Rust once that's all done. Okay, so we got a few options here, looks like. 3 for cancel, 2 for customize, 1 for proceed with standard installation, default, just press enter. Okay, so I can press enter or key in 1. Either way, I'm going to get the first option, which is the one that I want. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and enter 1 there, and then enter on that, and then it's going to go ahead and run through the process of downloading the shell script and then passing it into the bash shell interpreter for it to install Rust in the Rust toolchain. So I'm not sure how long this is going to take. As you can see, it's going good here. I'm going to pause the video because I don't know how long it's going to take, and I'll be back when it's done. So back in a moment. Okay, that didn't take too long, but everything looked like it went through very nicely, no errors. Okay, so we're going to just check this bottom part here. We're okay to this point here, and it looks like everything was okay. Green, Rustc 1.87 was installed, which is the most current version of Rust. Okay, Rust is installed. Rust is installed now. Great. Okay, and it doesn't seem like I'm going to have to log out or log back in or restart to reload the path environment variable, so we can go ahead and use Rust. It seems like if I do all that, I'll kill the video. So it seems like I can get away with just Xing out the terminal and then reopening it, and that should activate Rust, and it should go ahead and like it says here, restart the current shell just by pretty much Xing it out and then reopening the terminal. That should satisfy this requirement here, so we can actually reload the path environment variable, so we can go ahead and verify the installation and use Rust in the terminal. Okay, let's see here. Current shell, I need to source the following. Okay, I might have to actually do something here before I X out the terminal and reopen it. So let's do this here. To configure the current shell, I need to source this. I need to source this right here. I need to source the corresponding environment file under home cargo. Okay, so let's see here. This is usually done by running one of the following. Okay, so it tells you what to do here. Home cargo env. Okay, let me pause the video and figure out exactly which one I need to go ahead and use here to source it. Okay, so back in a moment once I figure that out. Okay, the answer was right in front of me, and it was pretty clear right from the get-go. right here, you use this line here for shell and for regular shell, and then also for born again shell. So since we're in bash, we're going to use this first one. This one down here would be for a fish shell, which we're not running right now. So I'm going to go with this first one here. Now there's a leading dot here. I'm going to go ahead and include that. I think there should be there should be a space there. Okay, I'm going to try to match it exactly what I see here. Dot and then this path here. Okay, so source dot and then a space. Okay, let's see what this does here. Let's see if there's any errors or whatnot. What this is going to do, essentially, I think it's going to make cargo is going to become available persistently across reboots. I think essentially is what this is going to do. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and enter on that. Okay, here. That seems like that's not good there. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that dot, that leading dot there. Okay. Okay, one space there. Okay, let's see what that does. Okay, that looks better. I think that went through. I think we're okay to this point here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and clear on all that. Now, as far as I'm concerned, at this point, I think the Rust toolchain has been installed. It's a matter of just making sure that all the components of the Rust toolchain are on the path environment variable. So let's check all that here before we check the version. Okay. Okay. So what we're going to do is go back and go through the which commands here. Okay. I'm going to go through these here. Okay. Good. Essentially, we need to find out. Remember, before we didn't have any output. Now we're getting output for Rustup. That means it's been installed and it's in the right spot. And this is the path where it is. So home Paul, and we can also kind of vaguely memorize the rest of it. But I think as long as it's on home Paul here, as long as home Paul is on the path variable, then we should be okay. Okay, cargo bin Rustup. Okay, okay, that was for Rustup there. Now let's check a couple more here. Rustc, and let's go for right here. Which Rustc compiler? Okay, same thing. Home Paul, cargo bin, Rustc. Okay, good. And then we'll check we'll check cargo. We'll check which cargo, and we'll see what that outputs. Okay, which cargo? Okay, home Paul. Okay, everything looks good there. Okay. Home Paul for all three of them. Okay, good. So we're going to clear on that, and let's check the values which are on the path system environment variable here. Okay, so we're going to get the value in that path variable with this command here, echo path. Okay, good. Okay, I think essentially since home Paul is already on the path, then I think we're okay with everything else. I forgot if cargo bin was here or not, but it's here now. But I think just by virtue of having home Paul on the path already was good enough. So home Paul was already on the path. So everything for Rust, all the three components of the Rust toolchain were put onto the home Paul path anyway. So I think we're good there. Home Paul. Yeah, okay, I think essentially we're pretty good here. Okay? Home Paul, cargo bin. Home Paul. Anyway, it looks like we're going to be okay as far as the path environment variable having been configured for Rust. Okay, so we can go ahead and clear on that. Okay, and I think pretty much just three more things here. Let's go ahead and actually verify that we can actually access the three tools of the Rust toolchain from the terminal here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get the versions for all three of them like we did before. Okay. Let's see what cargo brings up. Okay, cargo version, good. Again, cargo is the build tool and the package manager for Rust. Okay, that's good. 1.87 for cargo. Okay, and we'll check the next. We'll check the version for the Rustc compiler, and that should also be 1.87. Okay, let's see. I want version for Rustc. Okay, good. 1.87. Now, Rustc compiler is obviously, the compiler. So when you create a Rust source code file with a .rs extension, you could pass it into the Rust So you would type in the Rust source code file here into the Rustc compiler, and it would go ahead and compile it. Then you can either run it's been a while, you can either run it after it's been compiled, or you have to use cargo to run it. But you can also just use cargo to actually build the source code file, and then I think cargo calls the Rustc compiler under the hood and uses Rustc to actually compile the source code. So you may not really even need to use Rustc unless you're using a single Rust, .rs source code file. If you're using multiple files and multiple source code files and whatnot, then I think the recommended way to do it is just to pass it into cargo, and then let cargo invoke Rustc under the hood and run the command and create either runs the program or it creates some kind of a compiled Rust archive or whatever, a Rust object or a compiled program. So, but you want to use cargo before you use Rustc. I believe that's the way it was recommended to use the toolchain. Use cargo and let cargo use Rustc. Again, you can use Rustc by itself, but maybe only for a single Rust source code file. Okay, so we're good on cargo and Rustc compiler, and we're going to check the version for Rustup. Rustup version, and that'll pretty much do it, I think. Okay, Rustup 1. Okay, now this is going to be behind, which I think is okay. Let's see here. Okay, that might not be actually. We need to maybe bring up Rustup to its more current level. Let's see here. We're good here on cargo and Rustc. 187 is the most current version. Rustup is on 128. Okay, let's read the info here. This is the version for the Rustup toolchain manager, which essentially updates cargo and Rust, basically. The cargo package manager, the Rustc compiler, and I guess maybe like the Rust SDK or whatever. But Rustup will, keep Rustc and cargo, and maybe some other tools that we're not really seeing here. Keep these updated to the most current versions. Let's see here. Let's see what Rustup needs to have done to it here. Looks like let's see. This is the version of the Rustup toolchain manager, not the Rustc compiler. Okay. The currently active Rustc version is 1.87. Okay, I'm not really quite sure if we need to go ahead and do anything with Rustup, but let's just try Rustup by itself here and see what happens. Let's see what Rustup does here. Okay, I need to pass in some okay, update. Looks like I need to pass an update to Rustup. Okay, so you can go through all this later, but I think at this point I'm just going to only do update. So I'm going to clear on this. I'm going to go Rustup, and then let's see what update does. Okay, that looks okay. Let's see here. Rustc. I think Rustup is okay. And then of course Rustc and cargo are on 187. I think the 1.28 for the Rustup, that should be good enough. Okay. So I think we're good on Rustup and Rustc and cargo. So we're good there. And one more thing I want to show you: whenever you're accessing a program or binaries or programs in the terminal, you can always just key in the keyword like this and get some usage information this way. Like for Rustup, you can get all kinds of options to get information about Rustup in your in your terminal for Rustup. Okay, so we're good there. Yeah, so you can go through and see what the flags are that you can pass into Rustup and get information that way. Okay, and let's see what happens with Rustc. It might say something about it needs to have a source code file passed to it. Okay, same thing. You're just going to get some usage and whatnot. Okay, so you can go through that on your own time there. And let's see what cargo does by itself. Same thing. You're just going to get a bunch of usage and help options here. Okay, so that's pretty good. So yeah, okay, so we're good there. I'm going to go ahead and clear on that. I'm going to go back to my fast fetch screen as I close the video out. Okay, so So that was how to install the Rust language toolchain on Papa West Linux 22.04. We installed the Cargo Package Manager, the Rustc compiler, and the Rustup package and the Rustup toolchain manager. Okay, those three versions there. We verified the installation, and I showed you how to access the help and usage in the terminal. And we verified the installation, the path, and everything. Yeah, so I think that's pretty good for this video here. So that was how to install Rust on Pop Linux 22.04. Okay, so once again, I am Paul, and I am the lead research technician here at the How to Linux Research Labs, and I'm also the administrator of the Papa West Linux Facebook group on Facebook. Please join. I do allow discussion on a wide variety of topics, different distros, tech news, tech personalities, and I don't just limit it to Pop and Linux. And at this point, I would like to thank you for subbing and watching my video, and I do look forward to your likes and your comments on my video. And until my next video, happy Linuxing.